Well, hey, friends, welcome back. This is Journals for Breakfast. My name is Andrea, and you are so welcome here. I realized this week, I don't know why it popped into my head, but I was working in my reading journal, which you guys have seen before, and I am shifting from an autumn journal that you've seen before into a winter journal, which I will do a video. Like I did the video for this autumnal journal, I will show you what I'm switching to for a winter version, which is going to be December, January, February. This autumnal one was September, October, November, December, January, February. We'll do a separate vid for that. And it occurred to me, I was digging around, I hadn't used my sketch journal in a while. And all of a sudden, I was like, wait a minute. You have three Archer&Olive journals going right now that are all different sizes, colors, landscapes, materials, and actually I'm using for different reasons. And I thought you guys might want to see that because it wasn't intentional. It's not like I bought a bunch of different Archer&Olives to test them for a YouTube channel. This was super random, and all of a sudden one day I was just like, "Whoa, that's three different, completely different setups. Maybe they'd like to see how versatile these are and how I'm using them for some inspo and how you might want to use them." So the story with Archer&Olive and myself is that at the cooking school that I ran, I started running journaling workshops in January of 25. And I have a retail space in the front of that cooking school that, of course, was mostly devoted to kitchen items and things like that. But I started bringing in some journaling supplies as well because we were running journaling workshops there on Saturday mornings. And so I brought in the Archer&Olive line in part because I'd seen so many YouTubers and really enjoyed what they were doing within them. But I was very curious about the line for myself, and that's kind of a fun thing about having a shop is you get to test products and also put them out for sale. So there they were in my hands, and I read a little bit about the company, which I encourage you to do. I've told you guys here before that I'm one of those weirdos that when I go to a new product or brand or website, I look at the about us. You know, if you scroll down, there'll always be an about us, or sometimes it's at the very bottom. I click that and read a little bit about the company. But Archer&Olive, woman owned and created. And actually, these journals come in these big hard case boxes. And within that, I'll open this one out and show you. Let's see where that little story is. Is it in the box? Yeah, it's in the box. Oh, sorry, I just hit that mic. In the lid of the box is kind of the about us for Archer&Olive. To the owner of this notebook, this is not just a notebook, dear friend. It is a powerful tool that just might make your day a little bit better. And then it tells you a little bit about the owner. Bonnie started Archer&Olive, named after her two cats. When she was struggling to navigate the everyday twists and turns of her own mental wellness, journaling, planning, and art became an important part of how she managed her mental health. Side note, that's exactly why I created this channel. Me too, Bonnie. Journaling, planning, and art became a huge part of my mental wellness program and still is to this day. Um, the solution was let's see, to her mental health. She decided to create a solution for herself that she knew others would love too. And that was the first dot grid journal made with ultra thick 160 GSM paper to be used not just for journaling and planning, but also for creating art in the same book without worrying about the paper buckling or paint bleeding through the pages. So it goes on from there. But what I will tell you is that the books are hard case, even if the material isn't linen, it's vegan leather or something like that. They're hard case and they're sewn bindings. I'll show you those when we go into the overheads of mine, which is just really nice quality. They don't fall apart, etc. I'm going to set this out of our way for the moment. They're boxed beautifully. You can keep that box if you like. I ended up using three different sizes of the Archer&Olive. The 8x8 is a sketch journal. We'll go through a flip through of that. The B6 is my autumnal fall journal. We'll go through that. We looked at that here before, but we'll take a look at it. And then this one is, make sure I get the size on this, what she calls this one. Oh, she calls it a traveler's notebook. Duh. That makes sense. It's got that traditional TN landscape to it. So here they all are again in kind of size. And yeah, I've had a really great time working through them. So I thought I would show you some overhead of what they are. Meanwhile, welcome back. It's so nice to see you. Thank you for the comments on the last video. Really lovely to check in with all of you as usual. And I did something interesting this week. I went back and watched my first video that I ever did on this channel, and I will link that video in this video if you want to go all the way back to day one and take a look at what I started here. I guess, what is it now? November? So it would be about a year and a half, something like that, since I started this channel. When I started the channel, so that would have been May of 2024-ish. No, February of 2024, something. I guess I should look at the date. What I didn't know is that 2 months later, I was going to be diagnosed with breast cancer. And so obviously, I got a little distracted. Things in my life take a bit of a turn. And I continued to record through my treatment. And yeah, I don't talk a ton about it, but certainly my journaling practice and the fact that I already had these systems in place was incredibly powerfully useful for me during such a challenging 18 months, such as it was. But I wanted to go back and look at the first video because I knew that I had done essentially like an outline of what I thought we would be doing in this space together. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to revisit that. And I'm really glad that I did. I think a lot of what I talked about in video one has come to fruition. It's exactly what we do here. We just talk about journaling and how there are so many varieties and so many ways to call yourself a journaler. Dear Diary is one of them. It doesn't have to be the only one. If that doesn't speak to you or doesn't work for you, journaling isn't out for you. There's so many other options. And I myself share here that I'm in and out of anywhere between about 4 and 8 journals at any given time. And some are Dear Diary, and some are therapy based, and some are dream based, and some are just collages. And one is about happiness tracking, and another is about a specific season. There's so much variety. And that is the message I most try to share in this space, is that let's not pigeonhole journaling into one thing and tell ourselves that that thing can't be for us. But basically, if you're here, I assume you're already pretty active in journaling, or interested in it, or wanting to get back to it if you've let go of it for a while. So in that first vid, I do a little outline, and I thought I would kind of revisit that here because I think it's useful in some ways. So one is the introduction, who I am. I'm Andrea, and at the time I tell you that I'm the owner of a small cooking school here in Northeast Florida. I am now a retired owner of a small cooking school here in Northeast Florida. We closed our business in July of this year. And why I'm making this channel, this is simple. I am somebody who shares. This is why my career was in teaching things that, so my cooking school, what I'll tell you about that is that I did not go to culinary school until I was 30. It was a second career for me. And I had always been a home cook. I'd always loved the idea of cooking. I collected gourmet magazines. But finally, I was ready to maybe move it into a career. And when I went to culinary school, in the 18 months that I was in my program, what I discovered is there were so many fundamentals that would be really helpful for home cooks if they knew them too. Obviously, they make cooking in large batches in restaurants and catering companies and things of that nature. They're valuable to that style, but they really changed the way that I cooked at home. So I opened my cooking school in 2007 to share those classic, hard, ground and fundamentals that you'll pick up in a French-based culinary program that actually translate into really good tips for home cooking too. So I love to share. If I find something that lights me up, that eases my day, that makes a task faster or simpler, that clarifies something that's been a question for me, I want to share it. It's just who I am. I want to shout it out. So why did I make this channel? One, I am a lifelong absolute lover of journals and all things paper, even as a little kid, 8, 9 years old. The store that would most make me just mouth drop, stare, and wonder was a stationery shop. I mean, I still remember one of my favorite ones in Atlanta. Um, and journaling for me, I think, like so many journalers, probably you as well, ebbs and flows. There's spells where it's every single day, I can't get enough of it. And then a year goes by and I haven't touched a journal, right? I think that that is completely normal. I think that that's just life and how it goes. Giving ourselves permission to pause on journaling practices and things that we love is important. And I think it's a really natural part of the process. But at the time that I created this channel, I was starting to really heal. I still had work to do, but I was getting closer to really healing from a very deep burnout. I mean, really bad. Like now that I look back on it, I realized that by the time I start this channel, I was coming out of what was probably a 10-year burnout. The worst of it had been in the previous maybe 4 or 5 years, but it really had started long before that. And journals saved me in that time. I was collapsing and I found a way to find refuge in this little artsy room at home with a pad and paper and just get some thoughts out. And that's how it begins. Got me back into this place of journaling, and it's become my daily medicine. Like some of you take a supplement or a prescription of some kind that manages a health issue that's beyond your control. Otherwise, for me, daily journaling in some format is part of the medicine that keeps me from falling back into that burnout trap. It is a part of my mental wellness, so my overall health, but my mental wellness for sure. And at the time that I was really in the worst burnout, so I'm going to throw 2019 as sort of a starting point in there when it was at its deepest, I discovered YouTube. I kind of stumbled into it and I found creators who were doing long form, what I call slow tube, just sitting with their knitting and telling us about what their projects are. That was it for a whole hour, what 3 sweaters they're working on, what sweaters they've finished, and what sweaters they're about to cast on. Holy cow, I did not know that that kind of content could be out there. And it was so life changing for me. I was really looking for a place to get quiet, and I just didn't quite know how to do it yet without the help of social media in some way, and in this case, YouTube. I immediately bought a subscription to YouTube so that I didn't have to deal with commercials, and I really loved that. And those Patreon creators, and I'll list a few of them in the link here below, but they're also listed in that first video, which I'm going to link below too. So if you want to click on those, they just changed my view of what was available content wise. And after several years of watching those creators, it was finally time for me to share as well. That's really all there is to it. And I said in that first video, if a single person watches one of these videos and finds something useful from it, it will be worth my time in continuing to create them. This space is not about a career for me, nor is it about income. So I'm not working on building a super specific size audience or anything like that. It's here to share in a space where creators kindly shared with me and helped me at a time that I really needed it. The burnout discussion is due. Now, when I started this year and a half ago, there were already some great creators doing content online about burnout. Since then, I've noticed that this conversation just comes up again and again. Everyone is starting to become aware of the burnout factor. I grew up in an era where workaholism was revered. It's in fact what you strived for. I grew up in the era where we looked up to women, like the character in the movie Baby Boom, or Working Women, where you just, and those were comedies, by the way, but I took them as visuals of what people respected about women in the workplace. And one of them was that you give 80 hours a week to it. And I bought that hook, line, and sinker. And I found a lot of my value in my output. And that is a recipe for burnout eventually. It's going to get there. But I had this feeling like I was ashamed of the burnout. That's what I want to say. I had a lot of shame with my burnout. I felt guilty for being burnt out on a career that I had created. I built the cooking school. I told my husband this is what I wanted to do. He made it his career too, left what he was doing and came into this with me. How dare I burn out on this enterprise, right? My customers really adored the space and found a lot of joy there. How dare I burn out on something that is bringing other people joy? I had a lot of shame with it, guys, like a lot of shame with it. And eventually I had to just admit I'm burnt out. Once I did and started talking about it, I discovered that a lot of women seem to choke a little bit on admitting that burnout is happening to them, especially moms. How do you admit that you're burnt out on your 6 year old, right? But what I've come to discover and therefore share as often as I can here is that we can burn out on things that we adore. It's okay, and we can get back to them. What the burnout is showing us when we burn out on something that we actually truly love is simply that we need to realign our time. It's time for us to make sure that we have enough time for ourselves in every day. And it probably is time to pull back the hours a bit. So, a 6 year old that has 7 soccer practices in a week might have to let go of one of those leagues and take it down to 3. You see what I'm saying? Like, we're going to have to manage time somewhere. I felt like if you admitted burnout, one, I felt like I was admitting failure. And two, I thought that I'm very black or white with my thinking. At first, I always level out eventually, but I felt like if I was burnt out on the studio, then I had to close it and move to a yurt in Alaska and become a chanting Buddhist, and that was the only way to resolve it. No, there's balance in between, but it did require that I changed my hours, and I had to set up really specific mental wellness time for me. And that's what this space was about, journaling every day. So, I also want to mention that I feel like burnout is a direct result of overstimulation. And I feel like we are in a time as human beings where overstimulation has become the norm. And in fact, I think that it's an intentional distraction. That's a conversation for another time. But we are overstimulated, and overstimulation creates burnout. And so, just finding a way to ground ourselves and stop that constant barrage of information is so valuable. And putting pen to paper in a quiet space, even for just 5 minutes in the morning or 5 minutes before bed, is the beginning of that process of building up that barrier against that overstimulation. And it's incredible how valuable that can really be. Um, I mentioned in this the content in the first video, what content I intend to share here, which was tips for journaling, prompts for journaling, affirmations, and those are all going to come in through often through a tarot card reading at the end or some quote that's really fueling me that week. I'll share videos of other creators that I really love in this space, which I do pretty much every time we do a video here. My clunky attempts at art. I am not an artist, meaning I have no training in art. I am self made in the world of art. And so I'll share that with you. I think it's really refreshing to have. I love watching professional artists work, but I really like watching beginners share what they're stumbling through as well. We do not need to be amazing at it. The output isn't what's relevant, right? The action is what matters. And I hope to encourage everyone to just try and have some fun with it and not worry about the outcome. Products that I love, although I'm not affiliated with any at this time or sponsored by anyone, I'll share with you the stuff that's worked for me and doesn't work very well, if that tends to be the case. Lots of positive vibes and lots of burnout chats. I want this conversation to continue. I just know so many women who are struggling with it right now, and men too, but I talk to the girls a little bit more. So that's it. You're super welcome here. I do mention in that first video that I'll do prompts on my Instagram page on Monday mornings, and I did do that for about 6 months. I just am not on social so much anymore. It's just something that I have discovered that the way that I use it gets a little obsessive, and I actually do better sort of staying off that space for the most part. It can start to stir up um, like comparison, I guess, is what it is. I'd hate to think that I'm really a victim of comparison, but it stirs something up in me that I don't adore. I love it when I love it, and then I need to stay away from it. Anyway, one of my favorite tips from the very first video is one that still fuels me today, and that is the concept of creating before you consume. And consumption for me, what I'm talking about is digital. So, laptop, iPad, Kindle, phone, before you touch any of those devices, do something creative. So as soon as my feet hit the floor, the first thing I do is let my dog out into the backyard and go get a cup of coffee. And then I come back here and I do something, whether it's a little journal entry. I like to read from Simple Abundance, and often she will inspire a writing session. Here's one from November 13th. There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. And that's a quote from Albert Einstein. And I started journaling just from reading that quote that morning. So I come back here and I get a little something going. Then my dog needs attention. I got to get the laundry started. I need to make the bed. I got to wash my face. You know, I kind of got to get the day going. But I always start the day with something a little bit creative. On days that I can come back to it, I don't have to race out the door. That's what I do. I come back and try to get another hour or so of creative time back here in the mornings. For some, that'll be the late afternoon, mid morning. It could be the evenings. But for me, it's create before I consume. When I broke the habit of waking up and touching my laptop, waking up and touching my phone, wow, big help in the world of burnout. Because again, no matter what I'm burnout on, stimulation fuels it. And so blocking that stimulation and just going into something much more soothing like this made a huge difference for me. And it is still it's my everyday practice. Like every day you brush your teeth, every day this happens. There isn't any exception to it. I don't even have to think about it anymore. So, yeah, I'm really glad that you're here. And I'm glad I rewatched that and kind of reminded myself some of our focus in this space. We're going to move to overhead to look at the 3 Archer&Olive notebooks. And yeah, and then we'll come back and we'll do a reading. I'm going to do a reading today from Work Your Light, Oracle Cards by Rebecca Campbell. These tend to be just really soothing and uplifting, and they're a great place for a journal prompt. So let's go to the overhead. I'll catch you there. Okay, so Archer&Olive, this first one is this 8x8 dot grid notebook. It says it on there somewhere. There it is, 8x8. And I decided to use this as my first ever sketch journal. I do not sketch. I've never taken an art class in my life. So what I'm about to show you is pretty clunky. But that's quite all right. I'm sketching to learn, nothing to prove. But notice something about this notebook is that it's this linen cover. And I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up, but can you see the hair? So I'm just going to give you a little warning here. If you, like me, are one of those shedders, this may not be your favorite material. I have a dog that has long white hair. That's not great. And my journaling book is an unlined leather bag. And some of the leather shows up on this sometimes too. So I do just come through and hit it with a lint brush now and then if it's looking particularly fuzzy. Just something to point out. They have these great elastics, and they do have a pen loop back here, and they have a pocket in the back as well, so that's super handy. And then I have a clip-on pen loop that I just ordered a 3-pack of on Amazon and add that to a lot of my journals actually. And the pen that I like to use in this for sketching is a, let's see, Fudenosuke Tombow. And it's kind of a brush pen, but it really does a nice job with sketching. I mean, I think. So open up and you've got this pretty foil in here, and then a place for you to put whatever you'd like to as your opening page. And here's something I want to share about these notebooks. This particular one, I think this retails in the $35 range, maybe even a little bit more. One of the things that we've talked about here in journaling land is stage fright. So, one of the reasons we don't journal sometimes is that we've bought a beautiful journal and suddenly we go to open it up and we can't break the ice. We're worried about our scratchy handwriting. Certainly, if you knew you were setting out to make this a sketch journal and don't know how to sketch, that can be intimidating. But how to break the ice. So, what I did was just created a title page, a sketch journal, and then a photo of a piece of art that I like, and then a stencil. And I put plus photos too. And then I started doodling. I just got out this pen. Let's see here. I just got out this pen and just started doodling. My doodles tend to be, they look a little bit like fake Asian writing, but they help me just kind of move my pen across paper. And so that's what I did. I just started creating doodles. And, it broke the ice. It put some ink on the page. It let me know that this did not need to be graded. It's not high art. It's just me and my sketchbook putting some pen on paper. So did some doodle wildflowers, did some doodle fake Asian writing, just got my hand moving a little bit because I was kind of flipping out about this thing. I think the price and the beautiful paid paper, and then the fact that I had labeled it in my head as a sketch journal, I was starting to get kind of scared. So tip for journalers today is if you are facing stage fright, just get in there. Put some stickers in there, put some washi tape in there, put a photo in there, just get the ice broken and then move on from there. So, as we go through, you will see sewn bindings. You can actually see the string that's sewn through this. What's really nice about that is these pages don't tend to fall out. They hang on really well. These were beautifully made, and you heard from the opening that I read about it. She did this with intention. One thing I love about companies is when the creator is a user. I can always tell I'm using a product that was created by a corporation and not a person because there's going to be a flaw with it. Like let's say a runner's power pack that's meant to be used while you're out running that you cannot open with wet hands. Okay, that's a corporation that invented that, not a runner, because all runners know that your hands will be wet after the first mile. You get what I'm saying? This was created by the user, and so it's just really beautifully done. Look at the spread here. I mean, you really could have some fun in this. I started some little written journaling within here. Using my mini printer that I've shown you many times here. I tried to see what a little gouache paint would do on this paper, and boy, does it do well. Like, it didn't bleed through, doesn't even buckle or anything. And yeah, I tried a few little sketches of my dog. I don't know how successful they are, but there they are. Got that light right in there. We'll move that around a little bit so that changes. But there are photos of my dog, sketches of my dog. So here's one thing that was kind of interesting as a beginning sketcher that I'm noticing I really like about this dot grid for a sketch pad. If you look at this picture of Echo's face and then my sketch of Echo's face, you'll see that they're exactly the same size. That is because I use the dots up here as my guide. So if his ear, like the corner of his ear, stops one dot in, then I come here and I go one dot in, and that's where I made a mark to be the corner of his ear. Does that make sense? And so it created a little map for me, and I kind of just repeated what I was seeing. I love that for a beginner sketch artist, by the way. So dot grid, really nice for that. I messed around with, like, see, the same thing happens here with him. You can see the size of his head and the size of the sketch are identical. So if I ever want to learn how to draw him big, I'm going to have to break free from those confines. But anyway, a pretty photo and then just some pencil and tried to get a little shading in, messed with a little bit of watercolor on here. I just pulled up a picture of a stack of books on my TV and just left it up there and tried to get some drawings of that going. Yeah, so, and then I kind of kept that sort of concept going, a photo and then a sketch, and then I'd like to come in with that black pen and darken that in, or I might try to do a little painting on that. Same here. But you can see what I'm saying about those dot grids. They're all exactly to scale. Now you know why. But I think it's handy. And then I just took some still lifes here and there and threw them in as inspiration down the road. And then a page of doodles and a tree. Yeah, so it looks like the last time I sketched in here, I was June 5th or so. There's one more page over here. So I dropped it over the summer. I don't know why. I was doing this in the morning sometimes, but I was also doing this at night when we were watching baseball games over the summer. And I don't know why it faded out. But yeah, look at this. Oh, routines for cleaning and just some little ideas about what to clean. Sunday is bed laundry. So there's pillows and a washing machine and a bottle of detergent. So just rando stuff. But I kind of faded out on it. So I'd like to get that going again. Oh, I used that as an inspiration for a watercolor I did. That didn't turn out great, but I wouldn't mind trying it again. Oh, look at this. Tarot ideas, like inspiration from cards that have a really pretty image on them. That's a good idea. I should do that. Anyway, there's my little sketch journal. So you can see you have lots of space. I've never done collage in these books because I have so many other collage spaces going right now, but I will at some point, and I think this is going to be incredible collage paper. It's so thick and delightful. So first, Archer&Olive is the 8x8 and my attempts at a sketch journal. I'm glad I pulled this out to share with you guys because now I feel kind of inspired to get them going again. I'll bring that out to the couch with me tonight. The next one you've seen, and this one visually is not amazing. This is my reading journal. I want to say about Archer&Olive and YouTube space that there are artists who are affiliated with Archer&Olive or sponsored by Archer&Olive who use their notebooks and do these beautiful spreads. And I encourage you to find those. They are true artists, and the stuff that they create in these spaces is so inspiring and so beautiful. There are a few who do reading journals in the Archer&Olives, and they are incredible to look at. Mine is not. I mean, no shade on me, but the point is that mine is just a list of the books I've read this year. I just put in a photo of the book cover and then my review on it, 5 stars. If I read it for book club, I'll make a note about that, and then a little bit about it. And it could be quotes that I loved, which is what these are here. Yeah, I don't know. And then maybe a little bit journaling about the book itself. Some cute reading stickers, so my artwork in here is not my own. It's always photographs and stickers. I don't think I do any drawing in here at all. I really love this for a reading journal. I tried to create a big, beautiful, artistic spread reading journal. It was gigantic. I couldn't handle it. It was so much pressure and it was weirding me out. So I just changed gears and said, what if you just catalog what you're reading and just do that? So this is a series, books 1, 2, and 3. I haven't read book 3 yet, but I stuck it in here because I do plan to read it, and I want it lined up with these. Then if I start my reading journal for 2026, and that's when I read this, it'll end up in there also. It'll go both places. So I left a spot for book 3 of a 3-book series. Yeah, and like this one I read this year, so it was book number 4, but Legends and Lattes was book number 1 of it. I read it in 2024, so I didn't give it a number, like this was number 4 this year, but I did add the book in here, so I have the 2 side by side. I didn't leave room for book 3, which is too bad because book 3 has just come out and I will read it. This series I loved, but you can see I read this as book number 5 this year. Then book 2 I read is book number 15 this year. And then book number 3 is number 16 this year. But look at something funny here. This was book number 5 that I read this year. Then I move on to a bunch of other stuff. Then I come back around and this is book 15, right? The second of this series is the 15th book I read this year. Then I go right into the 3rd book. It's book 16. Look over here. The 17th book I read this year was book 1 again. As soon as I finished the trilogy, I went back and reread the 1st book. I loved this series and I can't wait to reread the entire series. This series, she refers to Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities over and over and over again. And so I'm going to buy a copy of that for Christmas this year and read that. And then I want to read all these again. But this paper is so nice. It lets me glue these book covers in and write with a nice, good Tombow marker. No bleed through. By the way, my only DNF this year is this one. And the cover is so pretty. And the book was absolutely devastatingly bad to me. I donated this book, but I almost hesitated not even donating it. I don't know what happened here, but something went wrong with this book. It was unreadable. Moving on, lots of great books in here. Okay, so here's another one. See, I read the bookbinder. It was my 12th book this year. I already bought Dictionary of Lost Words. These are sister books, they aren't sequential, but they're related. The characters and the location are related. So I want to read that one. So I just wanted to have it near here, even if it ends up being a read in 2026. And Quicksilver, I'll read that. Oh, so good. These, oh, I skipped a page. I don't know if I meant to do that. I did mean to do that. You know why? Because that's got sequels coming out. And so I wanted to leave plenty of room for the rest of those. Okay. The House on the Cerulean Sea. These two books were so precious and delightful. I just pure absolute joy. This was for book club. It was very good. This one, The Spell Shop and the Enchanted Greenhouse, absolute cozy fantasy delight. And I left a page here because I think there's another one coming out in this series too. I just finished these. So 5 Broken Blades, 4 Ruined Realms, and 3 Shattered Souls. I haven't done a write-up about this yet, but it's 5 stars. I loved it. I loved this series. It was fun and interesting and quick. I absolutely adored it. And once again, what happened is I read this book last year. So this year, this came out, and this was going to be my 24th book. Let me make sure I get this right. So 24 was this one. I started reading this and realized that even though a lot of what they were referring to was familiar to me, I'd lost some stuff. So I go back and reread this entire book, then come back and read this book. So this is book 24 and 26. I basically read it twice. So read these, and then I read the third one. So wonderful. I need to do a write-up about that. Flashlight was for book club. It was excellent. It is not a fast read. And then Broken Country is also for book club, and I read it in a day. I'm not kidding about that, cover to cover. It was the most gripping, emotional. I absolutely love this book. And I'm into my rereads for the holidays. So Pumpkin Spice Cafe, I just started, and it's my 29th book this year. So off we go. I probably will switch gears and move for 2026. I'm going to flip over and go landscape for 2026. One, I'll have more space. I want that style because I could put the picture here and then really give myself room to write in about it. But also it'll be a visual that we've switched gears partway through. So that's how I'm using that. Like all Archer&Olives, it has a pen loop and a back pocket that I really enjoy. So there's my little reading journal. Then this guy, which you've seen, is a B6. Let me double check I'm right about that. B6. And this one is like a vegan leather cover. I love it. Oh, by the way, this is also linen, but I think because it's such a light color, you can't tell that there's hair all over it. So that's another thought. This one you guys have seen. This became my autumn journal. I was so tired of summer by the end of August that I actually said, notes about August, read me every June, July, and prepare. August threw me into essentially a depression. I was really struggling in August. And so I've got some notes to myself for the early part of the summer next year to reread. And just some fun collage pages in here that we've looked through. Focus for this journal is a new routine that creates space for some slow-paced mornings, plenty of art, baking a couple times a week, working out 3 times a week, which I have been doing since March. Thank you. House cleaning, small project tackles, some garden time, some meal prep, lots of nature walks. So just kind of reminding myself what I'm grounding into here. I did some quotes from readings throughout in the beginning. And then I sort of plotted out. I was really struggling in August getting motivated to do anything. And I understand in part because it's 175,000 degrees was the actual temperature here. And we were all just losing our minds. So you just can't function. But I had this idea that, like, when fall hit and the weather broke, these are things I would love to see in each day. Some snacking and food ideas. Yeah. So it was just some basic journaling at that point. And then I created, and then some little ideas about meals. And then I created some projects room by room pages, which I didn't say what room. I just put the header in. I guess I filled them all in, but it just said projects room by room. And then I started thinking about the projects, and one was the master bedroom. And on October 25th, I knocked it out. All of this stuff was done. We do need to paint. That's the one last thing we need to do. But lots of good stuff done there. Big clothes clean out. I've loved this one because of the size. I really enjoy carrying this around with me. So for like little checklists and to-do lists, it just seems really useful for that. And some reading thoughts about 2025. This is what I've read. The only thing that I put in here is the photo and my thoughts on what I've read. It doesn't have anything to do with upcoming or future ideas. So I jotted some of that stuff down in here, and then created some journal pages. So had some fun with some collage and just creating some pretty space here. And you've seen this. I've done a flip through with you guys for this before. I just started creating these kind of collage pages, and then I would come back and do some journaling within them. I'll show you some blanks so you can see what I'm talking about, like that. Like, just create a blank page, and then I'll come back and do some journaling with it. Yeah, a little sketch of a fall tree there, I guess. So see what I mean? Some days I didn't really feel like writing. So I just do my collage work within this and leave some writing space for myself. I've got blank pages here. I can't wait to fill that in. This is from Flow paper book that I showed you guys. We did a flip through on that here. So these are just ready to just put some deep thoughts into. I don't know how much more I'll get done of this. I'm technically moving into a winter version of the, this is a sweet card from a friend of mine. Winter version of this kind of small notebook. And the winter is just December, January, February. So I'm only going to keep this going through the end of November. But yeah, I've really loved it. So pocket, I decorated the back pocket here, but pockets, you can put your nice fall stickers in, and pen loop. What do I usually have in here? Oh, I know what I've been using in here. And I don't know where it is right now, but I've been using that brown Stabilo pencil pen. I really like that in here. One thing I will say, by the way, I'm glad I mentioned that. I was struggling with my fountain pen skipping on this paper. This paper has a silkiness to it, and I think the ink that I have in my fountain pens is just not grabbing to this very well. So I did have to switch pens at some point. See if I can find an example of that. But I just felt like, see, it's kind of skippy right there. Just felt like that was skipping so much. It was making me a little kooky. Because when your fountain pen skips, you start dragging. But I don't see a great example of it. But anyway, I switched pens at some point. So there's that guy. So Archer&Olive. Like I said, I am in no way an affiliated Archer&Olive artist. The people that they hire for that are artists. But I thought you might enjoy just kind of seeing the lineup of the ways I'm using these different journals. And what I will say about them is I think they're absolutely worth the price. And I hope you'll treat yourself to something like this. What a really wonderful journal they've been. There's nothing more frustrating than having ideas about sketching or a little watercolor or some collage and the paper failing you. I have had that happen many times, and it is an absolute bummer. I have a friend who's thinking about doing some beginner watercolor, and I told her, no matter what you think about your value of your watercolor, I want you to invest in good paper. Because I was trying on cheap paper and just could not get the results I wanted. I just couldn't. This is just garbagey paper. I had to just get back to a really nice paper here. Arches. So I think one good way, and by the way, these are going to go into Advents I'm doing for friends. On the days that they just get a little chocolate, they'll get one of these, and it has a little saying behind it. And I'm going to give them twine, so if they want to use them as gift tags, they can. If they want to string them up, they could use them as little garlands. My point, I'll talk about some Christmas crafts in a video if you'd like. Let me know. My point about this is you can really diminish your faith in yourself and your practice and what you're trying to do when your paper is disintegrating under you, or it's falling out of your journals. You know, you're keeping this journal and your book journal pages just keep falling out, or it's bled through and now you can't read your entry on the next page. Those little things can really shut us down when we're trying to create. So investing in good quality is investing in you and investing in this practice, and I think it's really worth it. So if this is an Archer and Olive review, then it gets 5 stars from me, all 3 books. I would highly recommend them, and I will continue to buy them. If I ultimately end up doing a shop of some type down the road again, I will 100% carry them. Really happy with this company. So I hope that was helpful. So I hope that little Archer and Olive overview was helpful to you. I always like to see how people are using different journals and products. If you have some you recommend, I would love to know. But I've been really happy with those. So yeah, and we're going to do a tarot card reading to do a little journal prompt for us today. You can use this throughout the week. One way to get some journaling mojo back on track is to not try to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to be the world's best creative writer to create journals. You can just look up a quick affirmation or quote, write it onto a piece of paper, and you have journaled for the day. If that quote causes you to think of something else, you can jot some notes down about that. I talk in that first video about prompted journals. I think they're super handy when we have kind of writer's block or stage fright or whatever it is. They just tell you what to write about. And you can make your own prompted journals as well. On a day that you're just not really feeling it, look up 4 affirmations and write them at the top of 4 different pages, and you've just set yourself up for prompted journaling for the next 4 days anyway. Or for your next 4 journaling sessions. So Rebecca Campbell, Work Your Light Oracle. I love these. And sometimes when I sit down with tarot cards, I have a question in mind, but not always. Often I just look for some guidance. What's the message that needs to be heard by me today? And I just leave it at that. So that's what we'll do. What is the message that that we could benefit from hearing today? And we'll take a look. It's a nice size deck. And I usually shuffle them like real shuffle. I'll just get on. Flip card. And we got, oh, how lovely. Protection. I'll cover up me so it'll focus on it. I'm going to put my glasses on, and I want to warn you. You're going to think they have spots on them. They don't. My dog got a hold of them. Those are teeth marks, so they're permanent until I get new glasses. Protection. Call back your power. Cut the cords. Soul retrieval. Let's check it out. Protection. Now, I don't look these up in advance, so it always takes me a second to find the page. Sorry about that. 104. Okay. Protection. Call back your power. Cut the cords. Soul retrieval. You are being called to protect your energy and call back your power. May all the lost pieces return home now. Take a look at who and what drains your energy. Do not keep your tabs open. Shut down energetically each night. Energetic cords are formed between people, places, objects, and events, so it is important to keep checking in. Your energy and energetic space are sacred, so treat them as such. Keeping your energy clear takes work. As we go through life, we can give away our power. So it is important that we call it back by cutting energetic cords or doing a form of healing known as soul retrieval. Can you think of a traumatic event, relationship, or soul memory that you're being called to call back your power from? Check into your body now and see what chakra feels like it needs a bit of an energetic cleanup. Here's a activation. So you can hold this card to your chest, or just hold it in hand, or just bring it to your mind and say, I call back any lost soul fragments, power, or light now. Any vows, soul contracts, hexes, or programs from the past or present, from this life or others that are not in the highest good of all, I relinquish now. Any power or light that I have willingly or unwillingly given away or had taken from me, I call back now. Any cords or attachments from this life or others, I release now for the highest good of all. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. And I will tell you one place that can take energy from me, where I can leave my tabs open, where I can be exposed, where I can let things in. And that, my friends, is anything digital. It is Instagram and Facebook and anything with a reel that I can scroll, laptops, e-readers, iPads. That digital world pulls energy from me in a funny way. That is not to say that it does that for everybody. It's what it does to me. Uh, you can eat mangoes. I can't eat mangoes. I can eat shrimp. You can't eat shrimp. This is personal stuff, has nothing to do with right or wrong, or somebody who's living more spiritually or less so. It's not the point. We have to pay attention to what pulls our energy away and what feeds our energy. And I have come to understand that those spaces really can drain my energy or impact it, shift it, create fervor where there doesn't need to be. So, protection, call back your power, cut the cords from what is no longer serving you. Soul retrieval, how do we find it? We go inward, we are with ourselves, and a great place to do that is with a paintbrush, splattering ink on a triangle and calling it a Christmas tree, or in a journal, writing out some thoughts, or in nature, just a quiet walk. So, thanks for being here, friends. I'm really enjoying this space with you. I love that you are here. I hope you have a beautiful, focused week and find a lot of time for yourself. And I'll look forward to next time.